All right, welcome everyone to the 2022 Ice Hockey Committee meeting. Thanks everyone for joining us this morning. Obviously, we know we've got a snow day throughout the metro area, so thanks for hopping on what is an off day for many of you, to our committee members as well. So we've got the agenda up here on the screen. We've got a pretty full schedule for this morning. I would anticipate the meeting going probably hour and 15 minutes for those of you who are trying to kind of plan your mornings out. So 10:15, 10:30, I think is when we'll probably wrap up. So we'll go ahead and just get started, call the meeting to order. I'm going to turn it over to our committee chair, Larry Bull, to run us through this morning's agenda.
All right, Justin, thank you. And again, thank you for everybody joining us today. I know some are on snow days and with this, but it's important that we have this meeting today with that. Before we go, if we can have the committee members introduce themselves and also what school they're at, and then also the guests. So if we can start on the agenda. I'm Larry Bull, Director of Athletics and Activities for the Cherry Creek School District and the committee chair for ice hockey.
Travis, why don't we go to you?
Travis Avery, Summit High School Athletic and Activities Director.
Tarita Walker, Principal, Denver East High School.
Andrew Marshall, Air Academy High School.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Emmy Murphy. I'm at Centaurus High School, and I'm the Athletic Activities Director.
Greg Denny, Glenwood Springs High School Athletic Director.
Joe Novak, the Colorado Hockey Officials Association President.
George Gwozdecki, ice hockey coach at Valor Christian High School, as well as I'm in my first year of a 2-year cycle for the Colorado High School Ice Hockey Coaches Association as the president.
My name.
I got you. Sorry, Jason Schofield, Colorado Avalanche, amateur hockey development.
My name's Dan Woodley. I'm with Regis Jesuit High School. I'm the NFHS Ice Hockey Committee member.
John Michael X, Sports Engine Admin.
And then we also have Justin with us. So with that, just a few comments before we get started with this. First of all, I'd like to congratulate Dan Woodley from Regis, 300 plus wins. That's a huge honor. And it's quite an accomplishment. And I will tell you, the article on the Aurora Sentinel was pretty amazing, where alum and all came back. So congratulations, Dan Woodley.
Yeah, well done.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate it.
Because I'll tell you what, getting 300 is a lot. So, and I'm not saying you're old, but it's just it's a lot. So, and again, with that, the other thing that I want to say, and I'm going to talk pretty general with this, is I really appreciate the ice hockey group. I think the coaches are highly competitive, and I think they are very supportive for the sport of ice hockey and do what's best for the sport. So again, I really enjoy being the committee chair for the ice hockey committee, and also want to point something out and acknowledge a coach, the Denver East coach. Last year, COVID was a challenging time, and we had some that didn't adhere to what I believe was the appropriate waiver piece with that, and he did call some people out on that. And again, that's what I do appreciate about this, is it was professional and so on. But we as a group need to stay together for the sport of ice hockey. So just want to really talk general about that. Also would like to thank Joe, the officials president. I will tell you, you do an amazing job. Our games are covered. Our kids are playing ice hockey. And I believe that's a huge attribute to you and what your association has done with it. So thank you from the ice hockey committee and everything you do. And we couldn't do what we do without you. So thank you very much. Also, Jason from the Colorado Avalanche. I will tell you that partnership has been amazing. And what the Avalanche have done for high school hockey has been instrumental with this. So Jason, thank you. And the partnership has been noticed, and we value it. So thank you. And then John, Sports Engine's been with us for quite some time. Thank you for being here with us today as we go through this. So with that, Justin already called the meeting. Again, welcome. And I think we're going to go to 3.0. And I'm assuming everybody had the committee minutes from last year. And if there's any questions, we can go back to them. If not, we can make a motion, a second, and accept those meetings, and then go to 4.0.
Whenever everybody get a chance to review them, if you've already reviewed them, we'll just need a motion to approve the 2021 ice hockey minutes a second, and then we'll pass that through. So whenever someone's ready.
I move to
Motion
approve.
from, second from Travis.
All right. 4.0, this is where there's any additions to the agenda. If everybody can look at the agenda, there's a full slate and some things that we will have, action items that we will have to discuss. But are there any other additions to the ice hockey agenda from the committee or guests that would be worthwhile adding to the agenda?
I have an addition proposal that I shared with Justin that he sent out yesterday. Specific to 4A, what the Mountain League is proposing is that we set up some predetermined crossover games within 4A, and the structure that we settled on. The purpose of this is on the mountain teams, particularly side, we're struggling to get teams to come up and play us in the mountains. And this would address this in an equitable fashion. I'm having screen sharing issues, but if Whitney or Justin, if you could share the
Yep.
proposal, I'll run through it.
Yep.
Let's,
So I've got that
let's hold
added.
tight. Let's hold tight, and we added that to the action items because that'll cause for a vote. And I did review it, and I believe it's a very well-written proposal and makes sense. So when we get to action items, we will go ahead and have you present and ask questions and go from there. But that is an addition to the agenda. That is 8.2-2.
Yep, and I will share that. I can share that, Travis, when we get to 8.2.2.
Perfect,
So-
thank you.
Yep.
Travis, thanks for spending the time with that. All right, anything else, additions to the agenda? All right, seeing none, we will move to 5.0. Joe, the officials report.
Thank you. Again, I don't have a whole lot of items to cover, but I first of all, let me start with everyone and thank you for your cooperation with us and trying to work on improving the changes that come up in the schedules. Again, that continues to be a challenge, especially at the JV level. As you guys well know, we have a shortage overall of officials statewide for all the hockey that goes on. And once guys commit to taking games somewhere, whenever there's a change, trying to fill those changes becomes very difficult. So again, thank you for trying to work that in advance as much as possible, and so that we can try to get your games covered. As far as numbers go, just to give you a little bit of an idea, 2 years ago, we had 127 total officials signed up for CHSAA. Last year, due to COVID and everything, we went down to 113 overall. And this year we're back up, and we're back up to kind of where we were a few years back at 139 total. The Denver area, there's 85 signed up. Southern Colorado, we have 25. In the mountains, we've got 19. And then in Crested Butte area, we've got about 10 that kind of work the Crested Butte area only. So that kind of gives you a perspective of where we're at numbers wise. As far as the officiating overall, again, I stress very strongly to our schedulers, let's try to get guys scheduled in advance as much as possible. That way we can get the better quality officials out there and committed and to the high school games. Again, the challenge that we face, as you well know, is the increased number of games from a USA Hockey perspective, from a college club perspective. Now that COVID is, it's still around, obviously, but everybody wants to play hockey. So we're seeing definitely an increase in wanting officials overall. But there's always that hesitancy of going out there and working games on some members' parts due to COVID still. So that will be a challenge that we're still trying to overcome. Let's see. One of the things that came up recently, the holiday weekends are a big strain on us because of the number and volume of, tournaments that go on other than high school hockey. So again, covering your games in conjunction with that is always a challenge. I don't know if there's anything we can do about that, but those weekends, that one in January and the one in February, will continue to be a problem if we've got a schedule around those. So just keep that in mind when you're looking at your schedules for next season and see if there's some way around that somehow. I don't know what that is. Maybe limiting the JV games on those weekends would be helpful. What else? I haven't heard a lot of issues with regard to conflict or concerns. I haven't gotten a lot from coaches, just some questions here and there throughout the season that were just not very controversial in my mind. So I hope we're doing a good job for you. I hope things are going well. I hope the communications are better. That's one of the things that we've tried to focus on with our officials, is to open lines of communications as much as possible. So hopefully we're all on the right track and we're all working together to make this a better product for your student athletes. The 4-man system has been very helpful, I can tell you, in trying to develop some guys, having an experienced official and a less experienced official on the ice. So I would continue to push that as one that we'd like to implement as much as possible for most games. Other than that, I really don't have a lot to report, and I will continue to hopefully respond to your questions and concerns. And that's all I have for now. Thank you.
All right, Joe, again, thank you very much for everything you do. And please share the thanks with the officials that are stepping up and helping us play high school hockey. Any questions from the committees for Joe before we go to George 6.0?
I have a question for Joe on the holiday weekends. I know in several other sports, with the officiating shortage, we've moved to kind of rotating. For example, football, not everybody playing Friday nights, but doing it in an organized manner, where this week, this school is definitely on Thursday or Saturday for football. For those holiday weekends, do we need to, within the regions, the areas, do create a system like that when we schedule, just to relieve that pressure? Would that be helpful? And then we're doing it in an organized manner where teams are, helps the planning and it's not all falling on a couple of teams. It kind of gets spread out.
I would say that would be helpful, sure. And again, I don't know if there's any way to work with the USA Hockey folks, but typically if there's some way to combine some of the scheduling in and around those other tournaments so that guys can take multiple games, that is also helpful too. I don't know if that answers your question there.
George, can you take this to the Coaches Association and you as coaches discuss the challenges with that? And I believe that the coaches most likely can help solve some of this problem. Are you willing to take that to the Coaches Association and talk about these are the weekends that are really challenging, getting officials? What can we do, and see if we can help Joe with that?
Yeah, I think I just want to make sure that I get clarified the proposal that Joe has made. Is it just simply trying to, for those 2 weekends, just trying to schedule games rather than Friday? on Thursday or other
Well,
days?
yeah, and again, I don't know that I have a specific proposal. I just think there's needs to be an awareness. For instance, this last Martin Luther King weekend, the college club teams all had teams come in from out of state for a tournament. So every one of the college club teams hosted starting Thursday through Sunday, I think it was, even Monday, some games. Then the USA Hockey had a number of Martin Luther King tournaments, both in the Denver area, Colorado Springs area, and some of the other areas. So again,
got it.
Yep.
I completely understand. So
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know how to tell you.
Yep, I can do that, Larry.
Thanks, George. And I think the coaches they can figure that out. And I think what it is you're going to have to reduce that. Not everybody's going to be able to play those weekends or play on Wednesdays or something. But George, thank you for bringing that to the Coaches Association, and
will do.
Look forward to.
Thanks, George.
Yep.
What comes back with that. And I guess what I would ask is that the Coaches Association or you come back with a strong, this is what we have committed to for those weekends and how we're going to help the official situation. So thank you. Any other questions for Joe? Travis, thanks for bringing that up. All right, Joe, again, thank you very much. We will be moving on to 6.0. George, the Coaches Association report. And I know, I think some of the things you may be talking about are action items. So if we can talk general in the Coaches Association, and then the action items, I think are some things that you're probably going to have to talk in greater detail. But George, you have the floor.
Sure. Thank you, Larry. Couple of things. Really, I have three things I want to talk about. First of all, I want to talk about the Coaches Association fee. For the first time, at least since I've been at Valor, we ran into an issue last spring with one of the coaches, one of the schools, one of the CHSAA schools that to play ice hockey failed to pay their $150 Coaches Association fee. And as a result, their school was not allowed, due to the membership policies, the school was not allowed to vote for all conference and all state. And as I've learned, the CHSAA takes what the Coaches Association all conference and all state teams are. CHSAA takes that and just duplicates that as the CHSAA ice hockey all conference and all state teams. Currently, we have 23 of our 35 teams who have not yet paid their $150 fee. I have sent out a notice last Friday to our coaches, reminding them to submit the invoice or whatever it needs to be done. But it, as I said, it for the first time since I know that I'm aware of, it was an issue last year, and we're hoping that every school will submit their fee so that every school is allowed to nominate, vote for their players for all conference and all state. The $150 fee goes towards paying for the awards, the plaques, the mailing, the senior all-star game, ice time, officials for the senior all-star game, et cetera, et cetera. As of last Friday, a week ago or 10 days ago, it was 23 schools. I assume that number has dropped now. So that was an issue that, as an incoming president, I had to deal with, and hopefully we'll get everybody on board with that. My second bullet point that I would like to talk about is I believe it's an action item, Larry. It's the ice resurfacing. There is a proposal during the playoffs that if a game is tied at the end of regulation, prior to the beginning of the overtime period, that the ice be resurfaced. And
Justin, is that 8.4?
Yes.
Okay. Would you like to speak on that as why the coaches would prefer that, and then we'll put that in the action items? Or do you want to wait till 8.4?
I think 8.4 would make, when we get to 8.4, that would probably make the most sense to discuss.
Okay, so ice resurfacing. All right.
And the other thing I was going to talk about was the point structure for the regular season standings, but it's in the action item. So
Yep. Yeah,
that is pretty much all I have at this point, Larry.
Okay. So I guess
George, can you confirm one more time, what is the fee? Is the Coaches Association fee? I just want to make sure I confirm that.
The Coaches Association fee is $150 per school.
Thank you.
Yeah. Jeff Melnicki, the head coach at Cherry Creek High School, is our secretary treasurer for the next 2 years. So all those checks or fees are paid to the Colorado High School Ice Hockey Coaches Association, with attention to Jeff.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And I will tell you again, the coaches, I think you guys do a phenomenal job with the opportunities and what you're doing for kids. So it's a real positive piece. So thank you.
I just had a quick question for Coach. Does the Coaches Association fee get sent to the athletic directors at the school by Jeff to be paid, or is it emailed to our coaches to then get to us to be paid? Do you know off the top of your head? I cannot remember.
Yeah, that's the issue, Emerald, is that last year, let me answer your question. The invoices are sent to the coaches, and the coaches, it's up to the coaches to forward the invoice to their athletic director or to the executive assistant or whoever pays the bills at the school, at the athletic department bills. So last year we ran into an issue with the school's hockey coach. He just wasn't very organized, and he failed to do so. And as a result, none of their kids had an opportunity to be nominated or selected for all conference and all state.
George, can you have Jeff or get what you send out and what the Coaches Association does? And can we get that sent to every CHSAA high school hockey team that will go to the athletic directors?
Ask me what's your request again, Larry?
To have Jeff get what you guys create, or the invoice, or what the Coaches Association provides.
Yeah.
We can get that to Justin. Justin can send it out to all the athletic directors that have ice hockey at their school. And then we can ask them to have conversations with the coaches.
Sure. By the way, I just got a message from our secretary treasurer. There are now 18 schools. We had 23 schools as of last Friday. There are now 18 schools who are still, their membership dues are still unpaid. So we're halfway there.
If Jeff's watching, just have Jeff send me that email. If Jeff wants to send me kind of what that invoice looks like, and we'll make sure that gets out.
Yep.
Yeah, that'd be thank you so much. That'd be super helpful.
Yep.
All right. Any other questions for George? All right. We will now move on to 7.0. Coach Woodley with the NFHS. Dan.
All right. I have information from the NFHS committee concerning the rule changes for this season, and a report on how they were received. So if anybody is interested in seeing that report, I can send it out. But basically the questions that were put to the committee last year were about throat protectors, not putting a player in the penalty box for a 10-minute misconduct and a 2 and a 10. And then COVID-19 modifications. What we decided on those obviously was no throat protectors and no on the major penalty, disqualification, putting a player in the box for the we decided to put a player in the box to serve the minor right away. And lastly, for the COVID modifications, a lot of states have, their individual COVID modifications. But one of the results from that discussion was limiting the handshakes to a stick salute, so that the players aren't, necessarily touching their hands in this environment with every other player on the ice. So I think that might be just a local adjustment we could make if we decide that would be a good way to go about it. But as for rules for the upcoming season, any coach or official, Joe, who has any idea or any rule change proposal should get that into me before the meeting. We're building the proposal list for next year right now. So if there's any proposals, we could get that out and put them on the discussion list for the NFHS meeting. Other than that, let me see.
And do you have a date that you would like that by?
Well, he asked for 2 weekends from now. So I guess what would that be? Like third week of February.
Okay.
And, I don't know that that's necessarily a hard and fast date time because, it'd be great if we could get them there. They're just compiling the list and people review it as we go. So the meeting's not till April. Then I just put my highlight. My number one thing is I would like us to see if we could discuss raising the referee fees in Colorado, so that it is a palpable mission for the refs to want to ref our games as much as like college or USA Hockey. And that's about it.
Justin, let's possibly get that to the officials.
Yep.
Fee committee.
Yep. Dan, we have a separate officials fee committee, so we'll make sure to make a note there.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions for Dan?
Dan, if you want to send that document you were talking about to me, and I can make sure I can just forward that out to all coaches and administrators, so they have those rules, proposals, and kind of what's coming down.
Okay, and I'll include. They send NFHS sends out a ice hockey questionnaire every year, and we need to get as much inclusion with the coaches and officials, and even the athletic directors can go through the questionnaire. So the more people we get going through the questionnaire, the better.
All right. Since no more questions for Dan, thank you again. We will move to action items 8.0 on the agenda. Justin, if you can talk about 8.1.
Yep, perfect. Thank you, Larry. So I'll talk a little bit about why this action item is appearing on the agenda. Then I'll turn it back over to Larry to kind of lead the discussion and ultimately push something forward. But we spoke about it a little bit yesterday at the roundtable for any administrators that were on that meeting. Sent this out to you guys in your packet before, but the board of directors created a committee to try to come up with what they felt would be the best way to capture state tournament brackets moving forward. And so what that committee ultimately came back with was that the coaches poll was not a tool that they wanted to move forward with in capturing bracket, and that starting next cycle, we would capture all tournament brackets in every sport using a 50% split. So what the What the board of directors then sent back to sport administrators was that wanted to see consistency among all sports and how we are seeding the bracket. And so we've got, I'm just going to mute you here just one second, brother. So we've got obviously the 50% split, max preps and RPI, and capturing it. What each sport committee has gone through now and done, we've done it in field hockey, we've done it in soccer, volleyball has done it. All of the committees that will meet in the future will look to do this as well, is create some consistency on how we're seeding the bracket. And what we've said was that if that committee the board of directors created felt like the best way to capture the bracket was a 50% max preps and RPI split, then we felt like that should be the best way to seed the brackets as well. So soccer, field hockey, volleyball have all moved this through the legislative council that we would seed and capture the bracket the same way. The feedback that we got was, currently we're using 2 different formulas to capture and seed. And so, a coach is looking at the rankings throughout the season. Maybe they're ranked 2nd or 3rd, and then the bracket is released and they're 5th or 6th, and they're coming back and saying, well, why? And I have to say, well, we use this to capture, this to seed. And so there's just not a lot of transparency there. So what we're proposing here is that we take the board of directors model, committee model, and we seed the bracket using RPI and max preps, 50% split for consistency among sports and transparency throughout the season. And so people know where they will be ranked when those brackets do come out. And with the ability still to move the bottom half of that bracket for potential geography and first round league matchups, avoiding in the first round geography and league opponents. So Larry, I'll turn it back over to you.
All right, any questions for Justin? And I think there's some positives regarding that, and then some things that may create some concerns with coaches. So let's open it up for discussion.
Justin, I just had a quick question about the board of directors model with the coaches poll. Did you say that's going away for all sports, including this proposed hockey one as well?
Correct. Yes. So essentially, the board of directors said, okay, what is the best way to capture? And then they basically, that model was RPI max preps. And then they turned it back over to us with some parameters that they'll likely have on what we cannot use, but they wanted to see consistency. And so what they basically told us is, listen, we need to find a way that every sport's doing the same thing. And here are some things that you can't use. And coaches poll will be one of those. And so, some people like the coaches poll, some people don't like the coaches poll, but moving forward, I think that, and I will say, I thought hockey coaches did an excellent job in their seating, but I don't think we got that consistency throughout all sports in that poll. And so that's why so the directive is to find a new way.
Thank you.
Yep.
Justin,
thoughts, comments?
Justin, this is George. Can you clarify? I'm not at all familiar with the max prep poll.
So it's a max preps ranking. So basically, George, what that is if you know, we put all of our scores in the max preps as well. Obviously, we use Sports Engine, and Sports Engine is our go-to for our tournament bracket and stats and all that kind of stuff. But we use max preps for every sport across CHSAA for ranking purposes. And so, and I can send a link out, or Whitney, maybe you can put the link to that ranking in the chat. Might be helpful for people to look at. But what Max Preps does is they have an algorithm. It's pretty detailed, and I've used this line before, but it's kind of like the recipe for Coke. They don't tell us because it's so good, really, that they don't want someone to steal it. But they've kind of talked us through it. It uses a lot of different factors. If you're familiar with the RPI coach, you know it's just really black and white wins and losses. Whereas Max Preps kind of factors a lot of things in, strength of schedule, home games, away games, all those things. There's a lot more that goes into that ranking system. And if you look at it, in my opinion, it's probably the most accurate ranking that we have out there currently, just because how detailed it is and how much more additional goes into that ranking, as opposed to just wins and losses. So If you get a chance, take a look, but I really do feel like looking at that ranking system across all sports that they do a really great job in coming up with an accurate rank.
Thank you. Is that Max Prep ranking available to the general public, or is that?
Yes. Yep. And Whitney will get that in the chat. It's literally, if you're watching at home, you can literally just Google Max Preps Ice Hockey Colorado. That'll take you to the homepage of Max Preps Ice Hockey for Colorado. And then there's some links at the top there for schedules and rankings and all that stuff. And if you click on that, you can break it down by 5A, 4A, and all that stuff, and just see where everyone is ranked currently.
Thank you for bringing me up to speed. Thank you.
Yep, absolutely. And that will, this year, just so we're aware, we're still in that second year of the cycle. So this year, RPI, for those watching, RPI will get you into the tournament this year. And then we will still use that combination of the coaches poll will still be used this year. So the coaches poll, Max Preps, and RPI, it's that combination of those three that creates the what will be the seedings for the bracket. And so that's where there's going to be, Coach, maybe some confusion where you're going to see yourself in the RPI as maybe the number 2 seed. And then when we get that blended formula using all three, RPI, Max Preps, coaches poll, you might drop to 3 or 4 because maybe the coaches felt that you were a 5 seed as opposed to where the RPI puts you at 2. And so that's where there's some differences and some confusion. And so I think what we're trying to create is, one, consistency among all the sports. So if you're looking at how your team got into the hockey tournament, it's the exact same how they got into the basketball tournament. And you can see that transparency all year. You're going to see where you're ranked. You're ranked number 2 at the end of the year. When that bracket comes out, you will be number 2 on the bracket as well.
Thank you.
Yep.
Other questions or comments? Okay. Seeing none, I guess the only thing I would say is when this is done, that's the bracket, because there's going to be no movement. These teams just played or whatever, and within the league piece, it's where you end up. So,
and we could move, Larry. We would still be able to move in the first round. So obviously, there's we have a 10 and a 12 team bracket, and there's some buys. But those schools that play in the first round, we still do it. The seating committee would still have the ability, Larry, to move to avoid a first round matchup for those teams that are playing in the first round, a league matchup, or if there's a geography consideration that would be taken into account, the committee could move somebody based on those 2 factors. First round only.
First round?
Yes, and it would not impact anyone's ability to host. So if you were a host school, your ranking could not be moved. But if you were a school that was traveling in the first round, you could move based on a potential avoidance of a first round league opponent or some geography considerations.
Okay, and that will be written in the committee report that we can move to avoid first round league matchups.
Yes.
And geography will also have a part of that.
Yes, without impacting anyone's bye or anyone's ability to host in the first round. Only teams that would travel would move there. So no one would lose the home game.
Okay.
Based on that movement.
All right. Any questions before we call for a vote? Seeing none, I need somebody to a proposal essentially is need a first and a second. Proposal is that we would use the RPI Max Prep combination to capture the bracket, seed the bracket, and then we would have the ability to avoid first round matchups due to travel or league opponents, but that would not impact if you are a host school. So that's kind of what's out there. Need a first and a second.
I'll make a first motion for 8.1 approval.
All right, thank you.
I'll second.
All right, we have a second. Committee members in favor, I guess raise your hand or we can do a roll call. What would be the best, Justin?
I think there's just 5 voters, so I think we can just go through and feel free to unmute. We'll start with Travis and work down the list and just a yes or a no.
All right, Whitney, do you want to call roll and individuals vote?
Yep, sure. Travis,
4,
Tarita,
Yes.
Andrew,
Yes.
Emmy,
Yes.
Craig.
Yes.
All right, 8.1 passes. With that, we will get that written up and put into the proposal for legislative council. All right, moving on to 8.2. Justin, do you want to talk about the proposal, or you want to go to 8.2.1?
Yeah, Larry, what would you prefer? Would you prefer that we go Grandview and then the Travis
Yes.
proposal and then?
Let's go ahead and do that.
Okay.
So if we can welcome Wes Smock, the athletic director from Grandview High School. Wes, please join us.
Hey, everybody. Thank you for having me. Wes Smock, Athletic Director at Grandview High School.
All right, Wes, go ahead and talk about what you would like to propose to the committee.
Grandview High School would like to propose to the committee being having an ice hockey team as a member of the CHSAA, being housed out of Grandview High School. As we would come in, we would be a JV program only for the first 2 years. And then after growing that program for that second cycle, then hopefully incorporating varsity and JV housed out of Grandview High School. We would be housed out of, for games and practice, we would be housed out of Big Bear Arena.
All right, and I can speak. When we first added Cherry Creek in 2012, I believe, our goal was to add another team within 2014 on the east side of the district, and because there was supposed to be an ice rink and so on. So we are finally at a point where we would like to add a team. So any questions for Mr. Smock? Seeing none.
Easy.
Glad to have you on board.
You just did such a great job. Whitney, if we can, I guess we need a first and a second. So if somebody from the committee can make a first.
Yeah, no, just the proposal is just adding Grandview to 5A ice hockey 22-24 cycle as a JV program, 24-26 as a varsity program.
I move to add Grandview High School to the ice hockey teams with the JV team for the 22-23 programs, and welcome to Big Bear.
Yeah, there we go.
Okay, so we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second the motion.
All right, Whitney, if we can do a roll call.
Okay, Travis,
4,
Tarita,
Yes.
okay, Craig,
Yes.
Emerald.
Yep.
And Andrew.
Yes.
All right, congratulations, Mr. Smock. We will talk later and continue the process. Thank you for joining us on a snow day, and thank you for that. So as we move on, if we can have Travis kind of talk about the league proposal from the mountain schools. I will tell you, we used to have to do this back in the day with football and stuff in Grand Junction. But Travis, I'm going to let you kind of go through the proposal. And then I think we will open it for discussion, and then we will call to action on this.
Thanks, Larry. So as I indicated in adding to the agenda, the Mountain League is proposing for 4A to set up a specific set of cross league crossover games over the next couple of the cycles. The specific proposal, we looked at several different competition formats. I spoke with Justin about this, trying to hone this a little bit. And I think what the most sort of balanced approach is in the first year, and that the Mountain would cross over with the North League. And then for the first cycle, balance out home and away. And then for the second cycle, so that's 2 years out, and starting in 24-25, Mountain would cross over with the South League. And within that, the way we looked at it is the North League or the South League playing all of the Mountain League schools home and home over the course of the 2 years. And then we swap. That's the best way to balance it out and kind of create equity. What that means is that the North or the South League would get 6 additional games, 3 home, 3 away, and it would bring their, but since those leagues are smaller, bring their game total up to 14. And then that gives them 5 non-league open dates to schedule as they see fit. And then on the Mountain side, it helps us because, as I said, we're struggling to get teams to come up consistently. And it would move us, since we have the one more team in the league, that would get us all to 14 league or not games, and then we would have to deal with 5 non-league games. But so it helps us out on the the challenges, geography, and expense considerations. Certainly aware winter travel is difficult, both from the weather and traffic perspective. Coming up, particularly on Fridays and Saturdays, can be a challenge. So we certainly acknowledge that. And I think these games can be grouped where maybe programs can stay overnight, but resort lodging is an expense to be aware of. So definitely, I think those are the obstacles, the barriers that have been in place that have prevented some teams from coming up. But if we structured this, like our feeling is, one, no team has to come play any Mountain team at home more than once across really 6 years, but certainly 4 years of the cycle. So it's equitably spreading out that demand across the North and the South leagues over the 4 years. I feel, this is a collaborative approach rather than every school being on its own to address this. We're working together as 4A to balance things out. Still allows flexibility for a non-league if you've got, traditional matchups, if you want to play up to 5A, those sorts of things. There's still room in the schedule to allow that. And I think I didn't put this on the list, but this is going to help RPI max preps be a real, since we're playing most of everybody in this setup, I think it's going to help the ranking. And then, as I mentioned, kind of the con is really the expense and the challenge of travel, but addressing that through planning over time, knowing exactly what games you have when, hopefully will help programs deal with that. The second and third pages were just kind of a visual outline. I know it's turned, but it's a visual outline of what that looks like. And so, for example, if you go down to the, those parts of the document, I just created that as an example of how this would work and how for the North and South leagues, we'd have some balance home and away, and then what the Mountain leagues would look like in their schedule. So I think that hits all the points.
All right. We'll open it up for questions. The first question is this, because I know they used to, back in the day, and I'm just using the word that I think maybe they're buddy games. So if I go up, would I get 2 games from schools in the mountains, or does that address this?
I
And
tried.
when a school comes down, they get 2 games down in the metro area. So has that been brought into this?
I tried to do a little bit of that, but I may have missed a couple pieces. So I think that's where we could refine it a little bit. But okay. The intent, yes, is you could make, Front Range team can make a trip up and play Friday, Saturday, and, get Summit and Steamboat in, or Glenwood and Aspen. I did try and massage it a little bit where you've got geographically close schools, home and home at the same time. So you could make one trip, deal with an overnight, and that's where the lodging piece comes in and get.
And Travis, we could, CHSAA, we could facilitate a Zoom between the 2 leagues, scheduling Zoom, so that you guys could literally come on and create that schedule similar to what we do like with field hockey. We have a scheduling meeting. We could do that for those leagues so that you guys could all be in the same room and make sure that you're trying to coordinate that. So maybe you can come up, play a couple of games. Mountain schools can come down, play a couple of games, and just get in the same room and hash that out.
Justin, has this been discussed with those league schools? And I will tell you, I'm all for this because we want the sport to continue to excel and succeed. I probably shouldn't have said that because I don't want to sway votes, but has this been discussed with those leagues that are possibly going to impact it, that will impact them?
Yeah, I know Travis has reached out to some. I reached out to some, and we do have Andrew Marshall, a coach on this committee, and I'd like Andrew to speak on that here because that would be a coach of a team that would be part of that crossover. So Andrew, let's hear your opinion.
I'm with Larry. I like the idea. I think it's a good thing that we do, but I also think that if we could bunch games together, you're right, it will be an expense as far as lodging goes. But it's tough to travel 4-hour, 5-hour travel time for a 2-hour game and then travel back home that same night. So if we could do something that's maybe like a grouping of games over the weekend or something along that nature, it would probably help out the traveling team.
Yeah, I agree. And Larry, the one feedback I did hear was that, and Travis mentioned it, you'll never go to a school more than once over 4 years. And if, let's just say you were the second of the cycle. So the North League does the crossover the first cycle, 22-24, the South League does it 24-26. It goes back to the North League 26-28. So really over a 6-year period, you've only gone to the mountain schools once over 6 years. So it's not like it's a massive ask. And I think we all know that the mountain schools are making 2-3 hour drives for league games. So, they're used to it and they have to do it every day.
All right. And then Travis, would this also be open if 5A schools to fill in some of those games, or is this, because I know some of the 5A programs appreciate going over there, team bonding, spending time. How do we factor that into this also?
So this just gets us to 14 or 15 out of the 19 varsity games. So there's still room for the mountain schools for 5 more games, the Front Range schools for 4 more games to schedule non-league as they see fit. So I think the 5A schools that like to go up can fill that out with the mountain schools. I mean, we could certainly, if they were interested, look at across hockey as a whole and try and put this together. But I was just focused on 4A since that was, I didn't know if we could, you start to cross classifications and that might have complicated it. So, but there's still room for those teams to be able to play those games.
Okay.
Yep.
Mr. Denny, any comments being that you are in Glenwood Springs?
No, actually, as we came up with this idea, it was really difficult for Crested Butte this year. I think they were able to fill 18 of their games. And I know that Jared down there in CB was really working hard. At one point, I think late in scheduling, he was at 14 games and scared to death that he couldn't fill out. So we all started a conversation and, how can we make this better for the mountain schools and make sure that we could fill the games we need. And actually John Castries and from Aspen kind of came up with the idea, and then Travis obviously just put it all together, which I appreciate. Travis, thanks very much. So we really would like this to happen if possible.
Okay. Any other comments, questions, or concerns from the group?
Yeah, I just have a quick question. Travis, thanks for putting this together. I think it looks really great and it's pretty smart with that. My only question is from the bigger picture of a committee deciding that crossovers are required. Does anyone have any thoughts about that? Because I know many leagues cross over for other sports, like just by getting together with the league, right? So Mountain would just be like, hey, South, let's do this, for example, or hey, North, let's do this. I'm just curious if hockey just feels different enough that it needs to come from the committee, a required crossover matchup versus the leagues just kind of having offline conversations about it like we do in the Northern League with the Longs Peak League for basketball, for example.
So I think my comment on that, I mean, I think you're right. I think back in the day, it used to just occur and everybody was taken care of. I think the issue is that it seems that it's more of a struggle. And I know back in the day, way back in the day, when Grand Junction with football, it was directed that a league would have a time that they would travel to Grand Junction home and away to ensure that, you know, they had games there. So Travis, I'll let you kind of answer that, or Craig, because I think you guys are kind of living it from that. But I appreciate you bringing that point up. If we could almost guarantee that people will buy into that and make sure everybody gets their games, then I think that's a good point.
Yeah, I mean, good question. I would say two parts to my answer. One, we don't, you know, as things stand, as Craig pointed out with Crested Butte in particular, I know Aspen felt this way a little bit as well. You know, we just don't have the teams doing it. So it's, from that point of view, it's nice that it's a requirement and takes that discussion piece off the table. I'd say the other example I'd use is we do this in girls lacrosse on the mountain and western side. We have some mandated crossover games that we've put in place through at the CHSAA level, starting the conversation. And it's just nice from the athletic director perspective when, you know, in the girls lacrosse example, we have a school whose coach doesn't want to play the crossover games because they're not as competitive. And that individual coach was looking at their RPI and things like that and thinking from things from their school specific perspective. And it was real easy to have an answer to that as athletic directors. Hey, though this is required, we're supporting other schools. This has come down through the CHSAA and you've got the backing in that regard.
Perfect. That makes perfect sense. Yeah, I think it's great overall, for sure. And people still have 4 or 5 non-conference games they could get. That's great. So we can still come up and play you. So that's great.
We'll be happy to have you.
So I guess, Andrew, anything else you would like to add?
No, I think it's all been covered.
Okay. I guess the only other question I would have, and I don't know, because I think it should be with this, is I don't want to put programs in a spot where finances become, and then all of a sudden we drop the program. I don't know if that's realistic, but I don't know if every school that's in the North and South have had an opportunity to weigh in on this. But I would like the committee to call to a vote and then go from there. And we may have to do some work on the back end to have some conversations with that. And George, I think you, as the president of the Coaches Association, can also help with this conversation. And again, this is one of the reasons why I like the ice hockey is the coaches really buy into and support each other. So with that being said, if there's no more discussion, if we can get a motion and then a second.
I'll move.
Okay, Craig Denny moved. We need a second.
I'll second the motion.
All right, Andrew, second. Whitney, if we can do a roll call vote.
Okay, Travis,
Or
Tarita,
Yes.
Andrew,
Yes.
Emerald,
Yes.
Craig.
Yes.
All right, so we will shape that, and then I guess, Justin, let's get a small group together from these leagues and start having some conversations and building it, and what would it look like, so then we can support those schools the best we can with
Definitely.
that.
Yeah, we'll get we will schedule a Zoom with all the 4A schools to start talking about which North or South will go first. Just get their buy-in, and then we can start working on a scheduling meeting for those crossover leagues when it's their turn. So absolutely.
Travis, thank you for putting that together and thought. And again, we're all in this together. So thank you. All
Thanks,
right,
everybody.
Justin, if you can kind of go over the hockey league,
Yep.
where we're at now, possible proposals
Yep.
from that, that would be great.
Yep, perfect. Thanks, Larry. So let me I'll scroll up really quick and just sort of show everyone, should be familiar with the current league structure as it is this cycle. The proposal for next cycle would be a little change to the 5A classification. So I'll scroll back down to the 22-24 proposal. You'll see no changes at all to 4A. We did lose Coronado from the 4A South, and Rampart stepped up and they moved from north to south. So we've got Rampart placed in the south, and other than that, no changes whatsoever to the north or the mountain leagues in 4A. What we've done in 5A is, we created 4A and 5A as sort of a way to, sort of gain parity with the sport. You saw some of the schools that were maybe smaller in enrollment, or just, weren't having some of the success in the sport of ice hockey. We moved them down to 4A to create, again, the 5A league where we've got like schools competing against one another. But I think what ended up happening is in the 5A classification, we sort of created this power structure maybe where we've got a couple of schools that currently are not competing at the same level as everyone across 5A. And so what we try to do, we've had some discussions with administrators, with coaches. We've done it in other sports. We did it in lacrosse, and we're looking to do it here in ice hockey as well at the 5A classification, where we've created a League One that has some schools that I think can compete against one another more competitively. And then we've created a League Two and a League Three, again, where maybe some schools that are having a little bit more success and compete against one another a little bit more competitively. And so if you see what we've done, League One, we've got Centaurus, Doherty, Lewis, Palmer, Pine Creek, Res, and Stanley Lake in League One. And then Castleview, Chatfield, Dakota Ridge, Mountain Vista, Valor, and Heritage into League Two. And then we have Cherry Creek, Denver East, Fort Collins, Monarch, Ralston Valley, Regis in League Three. And what this does is a couple of things. Like I said, create some parity, like schools playing against one another. We've created that opening in League Three. Grandview's going to come in as a JV program for the next cycle. And then when they would eventually come in as a varsity school, it creates a nice place in League Three for them to slide in there with their Cherry Creek school there. And then we've created that opening in League One as well. So the hope is to continue to build ice hockey and add more and more programs. And so if there's a new program that wants to come in, maybe it's Grandview. Maybe Grandview wants to start in League One. Well, we've got that space there in League One as well to give that opportunity to new schools coming in to build their program, and then hopefully move into another league and create that opening for another program, and just to continue to grow the sport. So that's kind of what we're proposing here. Emmy, if you want to talk a little bit about what this League One would do and mean to your program, I think that would be helpful as well.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. So Centaurus High School is in its second year of being a varsity hockey program. Again, it started as JV, and at the time, Centaurus, all of the programming at Centaurus High School is 4A, but the committee at the time moved to have Centaurus become a 5A ice hockey program when we first, at our inception, and we were initially like, no, please don't do that. We're going to get destroyed. And turns out that kind of happened in some ways. We have such a strong coaching staff that's working hard to make a lot of gains, but it's a challenge, right? It was COVID year, and now we were this year in that same league with a lot of the powerhouse schools. Unique to Centaurus as well, we are in the league this past cycle, right, that we're in right now with Monarch High School, who is the district, historically the district ice hockey program for Boulder Valley School District, and then we kind of have joined. So we're looking forward to this new mix-up that creates, for lack of a better word, kind of a hope league for our league schedule. And then our coaching staff can work really hard to create competitive non-conference games. So we actually think this is great. We did the win percentage averages for the new proposed 5A league for next cycle. And we're right in the middle where we need to be with all of those folks, like the Dohertys, Lewis Palmers, Res Christian, Pine Creek, whatever. So anyway, it's for a cycle, give it a shot. That's our recommendation. And again, our coaching staff and other folks around can still make non-conference choices that would allow them to have a competitive schedule, work on their RPI, all those things that are important.
Other comments? And Justin, this reminds me, and I think it was 4 years ago, the Coaches Association came because we had those 2 leagues, and one was really loaded, one wasn't. And then we broke it into 4 or 5 leagues and put like schools, and the games were more competitive and balanced and that thing. So this looks like this.
Yep.
I mean, this is going to be crazy that I'm going to say this, but I want to bring it out into the conversation. But don't laugh at me, mountain schools, because when I say this, some leagues have more travel than other. But I think this is appropriate. I think these schools are going to play each other anyways. The other thing that I would tell you is I think the League 2, League 3, everybody on that list play each other anyways.
Yep.
And I think it does support League 1, but we also need to make sure that League 1 gets their 19 games just as the mountain schools. And that may be another piece that fits into the mountain schools is possibly League 1, to where you may have some more schools willing or able to travel. So any other comments, questions, concerns? I would like to hear from Dan Woodley as a 5A coach on his thoughts of this.
Well, I agree with you, Larry. This is similar to what we had, I don't know, I guess it was 4 years ago. And, you know, it was pretty exciting to have a league, you know, filled with the top. I hate to say the way, you know, like that, because everybody's competitive, but it was exciting to have all of our games be competitive games, and there was no real, you know, I think that year the running clock issue went way down. You know, there was a lot more competitive games. So I like that idea. The only thing that, you know, is challenging is league champion or league winner with the automatic. I don't know if that's still going to be a thing, but an automatic bid, you know, whether that's equitable or not. You might have like a 3rd place team in that League 3 that, you know, deserves a high spot in the playoffs.
Other comments or thoughts?
Yeah, Larry, I'd like to jump in here because, and again, I may have missed it, but I would like to find out how the leagues, especially League 2 and League 3, were structured the way they are right now. I look at League 2 and over the course of the last few years, 2 or 3 or 4 seasons, and the competitive level of League 2 and the schools in League 2 versus League 3, and there certainly, in my mind, is a very a lack of competitive advantage between the 2 leagues at this point. And that concerns me.
Which do you think is stronger, Coach?
I think League 3 is by far the strongest league of the 3, by far. When not only this season, when I'm looking at the competitive level of the League 3 teams this year, but 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, the League 3 teams have been consistently strong. I think the only team, the only school that I see that's having an off year in League 3 is Cherry Creek. Otherwise, you've got some really, you know, you've got every school in League 3 is, I mean, they're all in the top, you know, they continue to be top schools in the state. So that concerns me with when you compare it to the other 2 leagues, especially the League 2.
And I would say, so yeah, and that's a good point. So what we looked at, I'll just kind of give the committee some insight on what we looked at. Obviously, we looked a little bit at geography, so you'll notice there are some geography considerations there. We've had the same 4 teams in the semifinal the last couple of years. You'll see we have 2 in one league, 2 in the other. So we did try to balance it out. I think, you know, everything's fluid. So teams have some success, you know, maybe 1 year and they're not quite as much success another year. We did take into consideration the fact that the Jeffco schools are now down 1. So you've got what was a little bit more spread out of their players with Columbine. Now that Columbine is not no longer offering a program, if you look now, you'll see schools like Chatfield and Dakota Ridge that are having a little bit more success, and we expect that to continue into the future. And so my opinion, and it's certainly not, it doesn't have to be right, but I think we do actually have some pretty good spread of teams there in both League Two and League Three. I think they're both very competitive, and I think each game in that league will be competitive. I don't think there's going to be a game where you'll walk into the arena and there's, you're going to know the outcome for sure with any game in League Two or Three. But that's just my opinion.
And I think the other part that I think comes into play where you have district schools, so you have Douglas County schools in League Two, you got Jeffco schools in League Two and League Three, but the League Three one is because it's more up north with Monarch, Fort Collins.
Yeah, and it still gives them, and they remember you still have 9 opportunities in League Three for non-league, and 7.
George, I'm gonna kind of
let me ask you a question. Would it be possible to allow a League Two team to lobby to move from League Two to League Three?
Which school would you think would want to make that?
Before we say that, I'm gonna kind of put you on the spot, George. What teams would you move from League Two to League Three? And again, you got to think of geography, you got to think of district and all those things. But before you answer that question, because I know what you're going to say, I believe, what would you move within League Two and League Three?
My suggestion would be to move Valor from League Two to League Three. And I don't think so that would give League Three 7 schools and League Two 6 schools. Again, that would be my answer, Larry.
And I would say that would be a good suggestion, just because when Grandview comes in, that leaves them an open spot in League Two, which will probably be more competitive for them. Otherwise, we're shoving Grandview into League Three against all the perennial powerhouses right off their first year.
When Grandview would have the option of League One as well. There is an opening there.
Oh, true.
Speaking on behalf of Valor, I don't believe that there would be any issue for us with travel, whether it's to Fort Collins or to Superior or what have you. Now,
did you get a jet?
It's in the factory right now being made.
All right.
Yeah.
Can we borrow it when we go up to the mountain schools?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. We want to be fair and equitable.
So I guess the other question, because and you guys are guests on this, and we have to look through this. Where does Chaparral believe? What about Mount Vista? I think what you said makes sense. I'm just trying, where do we go with that? Because then I think that goes back to Dan's point, where you could have a 3rd or a 4th place team in League Three that is maybe not getting in the playoffs or out with League Two people.
And remember, 12 of the 19 schools will make the postseason. It's almost 65% of the schools. So okay. just consideration there as well.
Any thoughts from people that don't have a dog in the fight? So George, Tarita, well, you got a dog in the fight.
Yeah.
So really, you're looking at right now. And I just want to give everyone numbers. That's kind of how my mind thinks. Really, if you're talking, Dan, you brought up the auto qualifier. Auto qualifier comes out of League One. Really, you're looking at still 11 more spots, and there's only 13 schools in Leagues 2 and 3. So just kind of keep those numbers in mind, and to realize just how many teams are making the playoffs here. So.
Certainly from a 4A perspective, with no dog in the fight, Larry, having League One, while yes, it's a fair competitive and not at the level of League Two, League Three, having that league champion still being able to make the playoffs gives them something to compete for. So that's a nice piece. And then everything else is RPI max preps. So as Justin just indicated, you've got those 3 spots, but that could, the other, was it 9 spots could all end up coming from League Two and League Three.
11 spots in front of
or
them.
11, sorry. So, that's a lot. I think for those, 3rd, 4th place teams, gives them a lot of opportunity.
Yeah. Well, and that's kind of like how it used to be. There was one league that the majority of them came from. So, Tarita, any thoughts from your perspective?
No, I don't have any new thoughts. I concur for the most part, so I didn't want to be repetitive.
Okay. Justin, any concern moving Valor?
No, whatever the committee would like to do, if the committee would like to move them over, and again, I think the point of these leagues is again to kind of be fluid. So you've got schools in League One. The hope is that they are, I think Emmy called it the Hope League, but I would call it a rebuilding league, and that they are able to rebuild their program, and maybe they would slide into another league, and maybe somebody that's struggling a little bit could go into League One, and we're always kind of evaluating where people go. So if the committee feels League Three is a better spot for Valor, whatever the committee wants, we're happy to make that change.
And I would say one other thing too, Centaurus, we have the kind of rebuilding Hope League structure for football, and it is actually going to be, I think, pretty successful and going all right. So we have some data to show that from a football world has been great. And poor Coach George is like the hot potato of the ice hockey world. It's like, where are you going to go? League Two, League Three? So I can support whatever the committee thinks might be best, but I know it's hard because I don't know how all League Three schools feel about the shift, but whatever makes the most sense from a 10,000-foot view.
So
we have 3 of them.
We need to probably put this into motion and vote, and then we will vote on this piece. So a proposal would be that we take Valor Christian and move them from League Two to League Three. I need a motion, a second, and a vote. Somebody needs to, all right, go ahead.
I'll move that we move Valor from League Two to League Three.
All right, second. All right, let's, instead of doing a roll call, are there any that are opposed to that change?
I think I need to abstain for that one.
All right, so we have 4. Any of the other 4 have any concerns regarding that move? Seeing none, please move Valor to League Three. All right, now with this, any other conversation with the proposals for the new leagues in the 2022-2024 season? From 4A, I think we're good. Any questions or concerns about 4A league placement? Okay, hearing none, we will move to 5A. Any concerns with the changes that we've made with League One, League Two, League Three? Seeing none, if we can have a motion or with that, and then a second.
A motion.
All right, we have a motion from Travis, a second.
I'll second it.
All right, we have a second. I will ask this question instead of doing a total roll call. Anybody opposed of the league proposals, please speak now. Seeing none, this will be the leagues that will go for the 2022-2024 season. All right. If you can go back to the agenda. All right, now we are done with 8.2. We're going to move to 8.3. George, this is a piece. I would also like to add 8.6 conversations about the Elite Eight or the Grade 8 at one site. I know that was talked about, and I got some calls on that. So if we can add that, we'll have a quick discussion on that. George, if you can go over 8.3, point structure for regular season standings, I'd appreciate it. And this is from the Coaches Association, correct?
Correct. George, do you need me to read off the proposal for you? Would that be helpful?
Yeah. Please go ahead, Justin.
Yeah. So the proposal from that we have here in 8.3 is award 3 points for a win in regulation, 2 points for a win in overtime, 1 point for an overtime or shootout loss, and 0 points for a loss in regulation. And it would require the addition of a 3-round shootout after the conclusion of overtime period.
And I can speak to this with, I think every coach and perhaps every administrator would be willing to accept this and support this. However, our biggest issue is the length of time we have at our facilities for games. Most of our schools at the varsity level, at the 5A varsity level, block off 2 hours for a game. And that is, if we're thinking of going into using an overtime and a shootout, that just is not going to allow us enough time to be able to do those things. In fact, we ran into an issue last night. Our game, Valor had to play a rescheduled game with Regis at the new South Suburban Sports Complex. And for whatever reason, the game was only given 100 minutes to complete rather than 120 minutes to complete. And the game went into overtime, a 5-minute overtime. The game didn't get over until 9:35. Mountain Vista happened to be practicing right after the game. They were scheduled to get on the ice at 9 o'clock. They weren't able to get on the ice until 9:35. And certainly their coaching staff wasn't very happy because of the late night practice, the snowstorm. So I don't see any way that we can adopt this type of proposal unless we all get our own facilities. And I don't see that happening.
That's another rumor I heard, you getting your own ice facility, George, with the Jet.
And we will share it with everybody.
Thank you. All right. So here's the other thing. And I got this proposal. I like the concept, but I called the person that I trust regarding facilities. He said exactly what George said. And I will also tell you that you would have to plan every game to go to an overtime and so on, which I don't believe our schools have the budget to facilitate that. And I don't believe the ice rinks would give us 2.5 hours, 3 hours to accomplish this. So I guess we can call the vote, or if there's any other discussions, because this would have to go statewide, which again, I don't know, Craig, if your ice rink's going to let you have an additional 30 minutes, 35 minutes to an hour. And I don't know if your program can afford that additional hour.
Definitely not on both counts.
All right. So any other discussion? And George, thank you for bringing that up. With that,
Can I just throw one wrench in there again? We've always asked for consideration to maybe eliminate one of the ice makes. That might help relieve some of the time frame issue, if we would be willing to consider that again. So I'm just throwing that out there just as a thought.
The next proposal is for more ice makes, so I don't know if they want to get rid of it.
Okay.
And that would be something that let's keep where we're at. And if that's something that, George, you want to take back to the Coaches Association, you can talk about that and bring another proposal forward with that, but we'll keep it as is. All right, I need a motion on this.
And Larry, if there is no motion, it could just die here too.
All right, I do believe we need to vote on this. And the
Okay.
reason I do believe we need to vote on this because some coaches would like this. And I think the ice hockey committee has discussed it. And I would like a roll call vote to make sure that we are with this. So with that, I need a motion and a second.
Motion to vote.
All right, we have a motion, need a second.
Second.
All right. With this, George or Justin read the proposal. We've had some discussion. Whitney, if you can do a roll call vote.
Whitney, will you guys read the proposal just one more time for me out loud before we can
Yeah.
vote, please?
Yeah, I'll let Justin do that.
The proposal would be to award 3 points for a win in regulation, 2 points for a win in overtime, 1 point for an overtime or shootout loss, and 0 points for a loss in regulation. And this proposal would require the addition of a 3-round shootout after the conclusion of the overtime period.
Copy, thanks.
Okay, so voting Travis,
Against.
Tarita,
No.
Andrew,
No.
Emmy,
No.
Craig.
No.
Okay, thank you. Proposal fails. I believe we are now on 8.4 overtime procedure.
Correct.
Justin, do you have the proposal? And then George, if you want to talk about it.
Yep. So the proposal would be for an ice resurface after the third period and before the start of the first overtime in postseason games only.
This is a proposal that, again, I think the key word here or the key phrase is postseason only. Not from game one until the end of the season, but postseason only. The ice surface, as the coaches know, even though you resurface after the first period and after the second period, the ice surface begins to deteriorate. So by the end of the third period, it's pretty cut up and not as safe as it was prior to the start of the game. Our thinking is that to be able to go into an overtime during the postseason, to be able to make the ice surface as safe as possible, because you could have an extended overtime where there would be no ice resurfacings, similar to the Fort Collins Valor Christian championship game a few years ago that went into 5 overtimes. The ice gets extremely cut up. It gets very dangerous. The puck starts bouncing. And when I say dangerous, I'm talking about for the players and for the officials, where there's ruts in the ice, you catch an edge, you can turn it, you can, least concerning, you turn it, you turn your ankle. More concerning is you lose your balance, you go into the end boards or the side boards. So to be able to take an extra 10 minutes, add an extra 10 minutes for an ice resurfacing after before the start of the overtime is the proposal that again allows for a better game, better quality of the game because a better surface to start the overtime.
Discussion or questions or comments?
I have a comment on that. I think if we just adjust the ice resurfacing schedule, you can, it's not really even adding. Well, I guess if the goal scored early, it would be adding, but I agree with George. I think having the ice cleaned before the overtime and then maybe going, right now, what do? We do 2 overtimes and then we clean again. Maybe we go 3 overtimes and clean again, because that's a 15-minute period, just like our 17-minute. Is that the structure of it?
I thought
Or
it was
the 8
after
minute
the
period.
first overtime you clean and then come back out. Justin, do you have a whole?
Oh, that
Yeah, I'm gonna pull up the, I'm,
I was saying,
almost-
yeah, I have it in the bulletin. It's after 2.
yeah, it's at the second.
Can the ice rinks do it? I know they can resurface it, but are they going to give you the time?
And I think that's why we've suggested this for the playoffs, the postseason only, because this is a special consideration as opposed to the many games that take place during the regular season.
So in playoffs, how long of, or how big of a time slot do you book if you're in the playoffs for a game?
2 hours. I will say that the facilities that we have experience in playing with understand the playoffs, the managers of the facilities. I mean, again, they're once, whether it's high school playoffs, whether it's youth hockey playoffs, that's just part of the playoff structure, and everything gets backed up, and it's not ideal, but they have a much better tolerance for backing things up because of the overtimes of playoffs as opposed to regular season.
What would be the additional cost?
If facilities go by the hour, it's roughly $300.
So that would go from 2 hours to a 3-hour block?
Correct.
I would only be okay with this, I think, if all ice hockey games stop starting at like 9:05 p.m. Thanks for your consideration with that.
Justin, would this
coaches
change
don't-
anything with the semis and final hosts?
I mean, it would be throughout the playoffs, so obviously we would do it. And I'm pretty sure that our sites would accommodate whatever needs that we had. Obviously, the bigger concern is the additional cost for those postseason games that are hosted at local rinks.
Yeah, but I want to make sure we're not going off on a tangent here, because
No, sorry.
whether we go into overtime and whether we have the ice resurfacing done after the third period or after the second overtime, we're still going longer than we normally would as far as the 2-hour time block. So no matter when you make that ice resurface, if you have a 5 overtime, it's, that's
Yep.
what's going to happen.
Coach, would you not want the
Do
ice
schools get
resurface?
charged that? So like you had do schools get charged if you are over your 2-hour limit?
That's not been my experience. Most of the time, they will just push the next game back and try to make it up in the rest of the evening scheduling.
Right. Exactly. That's correct.
But I will tell you, the year Cherry Creek won it, they were in 5 or 6 overtimes. And the Regis game, I don't think started till 9:30, Dan, or it may even
Yeah,
been
it was
10 o'clock.
Yeah,
But again, that
Yeah, it
doesn't
was right
matter if you
about-
surface or not, but it extends it.
10
What
minutes.
about the Travis or Andrew? What are your thoughts?
I like the ice resurfacing, like George said. You usually would just push the schedule back throughout the rest of the games. I think player safety is probably the main concern with this. So I'm all for that extra ice resurface.
Okay.
I think if you adjust this to, as George mentioned, do it after regulation and then move this the next time to after the third potential overtime, that, I think that's a way you can balance this out, and you're getting the clean ice to start overtime. But then, as George said, you're essentially then playing one more period if you go through the third overtime before you resurface again. I think if we adjusted it to
Okay.
balance that out, seems reasonable.
What do
One
they
more-
do at the collegiate level or the professional? Professional, they play 5, and I'm assuming in the playoffs they have to have a winner. So what do they do in the collegiate or professional?
Following every period, they resurface.
Yeah, in the playoffs. Sorry, in the playoffs, it's 20-minute periods makes between
Okay.
sudden victory.
Could I toss in one last item here? Is, we have a playoff structure that we've put in place for regular season games, which is the 5 minutes, but there's no reason to carry that 5-minute playoff structure over into the playoffs. We could actually do a nice clean first, after the third period, and then just put 17 minutes on the clock and play sudden winner. Whoever wins after that 17 minutes or whatever, if there's someone scores, it's over. If there is no winner, we resurface again, just like a regular period, and go again. And then we don't have to worry about, having stoppages of plays that might be artificial every 5 minutes or whatever. I think that would make sense for our state playoffs, would be to say, look, it's just going to be a sudden winner. We're going to go 1 period each, switch ends, and there you go.
And it's currently 8, so it's 8 minutes currently for the postseason. You go an 8, switch ends, another 8,
For the
and then
playoffs,
ice resurface. They played 16 minutes basically before the next ice resurface, golden sudden victory. And then when we come back from that 8, the 2 8s, remember we go to 4 on 4. So, George, would you want to go? Did I hear, just so we have this, so we can put in the bulletin, a 3 after regulation in the overtime, resurface the ice, and then come back and play 3 8-minute overtimes? Is that what I'm hearing, or we still want to keep 2 in the blocks of 2?
I think it would make, at that point, I think it would make more sense to be able to go 8-8-8, because the odds of it going like it did in that game 3 years ago, that's not going to happen very often.
Okay, so we would just keep it regulation, ice resurface, 8-minute, no score, switch ends, 8 minutes, ice resurface, come back, 4 on 4. Yeah. And that kind of is consistent with Dan's, playing 1 full period, kind of is that, other than the fact that we just
switch ends, right?
Yeah.
Just one more addition here. I would ask that there be some consideration on the officials' fees for playoffs when and if these games do go to overtime.
Joe, do you have a structure for that? Is it?
I
hour,
don't
is it
currently,
minute,
but
is it-
typically there is a structure in the upper levels where for playoff games, the fees are increased regardless. It's more competitive. It's your better officials typically are working those games. The incentive to make the playoffs is raised. And so again, you have some incentive there to have a higher fee for playoff series.
You can add that to our notes on the officials committee.
Yeah, we tried to do that with some sports, and the Officials Association voted that down. But it's nice that you're the president of the Officials Association for hockey, because let's maybe Justin, you and I get together and maybe take a look at that.
Sure. Yep.
One
All right,
suggestion.
So what's the
don't make it
proposal? I'm sorry, Dan.
by the hour. Don't make it by the hour. These things.
No.
I'm just saying, don't make it by the hour, or both coaches will be ejected. There will be 27 penalties each. and
Yeah. No, I agree.
Refs
with
will
that.
keep these games going all night.
Right. No, but again, just some some increased fee that would make some kind of common
Yeah,
sense.
I
I would
agree.
say, okay,
All right. So Justin, what do we have as a proposal? Because I knew we're not changing the overtime structure. What we're asking for is at the end of regulation, there would be a ice cut. And then we would go 8 minutes, ice cut, come back 8 minutes, 4-on-4, 8 minutes, 4-on-4, ice cut, and then go from there. And then we
Correct.
need to make sure, because I know that time when Cherry Creek and Dakota Ridge played, Bud, who was the commissioner of ice hockey, they were starting to have concerns about the safety of the kids just because of the length of the game. And that was also brought up. So we need to keep that in mind. So what we're saying is the proposal would be that in playoffs only, and this is 4A, 5A, anywhere, playoffs only, if you go to overtime, we're going to do an ice cut. Then you're going to play 8 minutes, 5-on-5, switch ends, go 8 minutes, 5-on-5, switch ends. If it's still tied, you would then resurface the ice, come back, and it would be 4-on-4 for 8, 4-on-4 on 8, then resurface. Is that what we're putting out there?
That's what I have. Yeah.
All right. Any other discussion or concerns? Seeing none, if we can have a motion and a second.
Motion to vote.
All right, we have a motion. Second,
Second.
we have Whitney, if we can do a roll call vote.
Okay, Travis,
Or
Tarita,
Yes.
Andrew,
Yes.
Emerald,
Yes.
Craig.
Yes.
All right, motion passes. All right, 8.5 forfeited games. Justin?
Yep. So this is really, I'll just be brief on this. Essentially, what we're doing here is looking to create, I just want to really just make the committee aware, make a subcommittee that will include myself, our committee chair, Larry Bull, as well as the Coaches Association rep, George. And we're just going to sit down and try to create some wording around what a forfeit looks like and just really some guidance for administrators to take back. Because right now we have nothing in writing on when you would consider a forfeit, what the process is around rescheduling a game, or when an opponent maybe is not able to play on a particular date that you have scheduled. And so we're getting a lot of phone calls now to the office in a lot of sports, not just ice hockey, but we're seeing a definite uptick in ice hockey on our opponents can't play. We have a game scheduled for this day. I'm looking in the bulletin. I don't see anything on what is a forfeit, when it should be a forfeit, how we do that rescheduling. And so we just want to provide some guidance for administrators in the bulletin that'll walk them through that process. And what we would do is George, Larry, myself, if anybody on this committee would like to be a part of that, they can certainly reach out and we can include you as well. And then we'll create some wording, bring it back to the committee before this goes to legislative council so we can include that in the committee report and put that forward and add that wording to the bulletin moving forward. And we would try to keep that wording consistent throughout CHSAA in all sports. So we'll kind of start with a template and then work from there and hope that all sports create something that looks identical. So no motion or nothing we need to vote on here. I just really want to just make everybody aware and know that we have heard you. We've heard those concerns, that we will create a group to sit down and try to create a solution for that problem that we have currently.
All right, so Justin, just let George, myself know, and any other committee member that would like to be part of it. We will get together sooner than later, because I think it would have to be completed by, I think, March 11th, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think that,
All right. The additional item I'd like to add, and again, we can talk about it. I know it was discussed. I think it is exciting for ice hockey. I don't know how realistic it is up in the mountain schools or others, but to where we would have a local site that the remaining 8 teams in the playoffs would play at the same site. With that, I don't know if there's discussion on that, or Justin, we want to put that on the back burner.
No, so we're excited. We've sent out the notice. We're booked. We're scheduled for the 5A quarterfinals. We'll be at DU this year. We're excited to make that announcement. I think that the sport of ice hockey is growing, and thanks to the generosity and really the hard work of Cronky Sports and the Colorado Avalanche, we were able to make that happen this year for 5A. As you mentioned, Larry, right now we're still looking at 4A and whether or not that's an option for those schools as well. And I think travel right now is the biggest consideration. We've got a lot of schools from the mountains and from the springs, and so trying to find a location that would make sense to bring schools to one neutral site for the quarterfinals. I'm not sure if we're there yet, but we'll continue that discussion. But with the majority, really all of our schools in the 5A classification being on the I-25 corridor, we felt the time was right and the need was there to create that environment and that atmosphere. And we're really thankful to Jason and his team at the Colorado Avalanche for helping us make that a reality.
Okay. So that's the Final Four. There was conversation or trying to create an excitement. And I don't know if we want to open this can or put on.
We're there for quarterfinals. We'll be there, Larry. We'll be there for the quarterfinals, the semifinals, and then we're
And
fortunate
the
to be
finals.
at Ball Arena.
Excellent.
Yep.
Mountain schools or the 4A, what is the thoughts on that? And how do we get that to where it's exciting ice hockey? Seeing no discussion. Justin, we will talk with the 4A when we do the crossover and Zoom to see where they're at with it and what that would look like.
Sure.
If I could just jump in here quickly, this idea is modeled after the Minnesota State High School Hockey Tournament, it's an extremely great thing for Minnesota high school hockey, and when they bring their teams to one site for a quarterfinal or their final eight, if you will, and I think it's a great idea. The Ryan Finnefrock from Chaparral was the guy who proposed this initially, and certainly I think it's going to be a tremendous positive thing for our 5A quarterfinals.
So the 4A committee members, if you can kind of have some conversation off and see what that looks like for your classification, I think it'd be great, because I will tell you it brings an excitement, and again, the Avalanche and Jason have done a phenomenal job to create a huge excitement for high school hockey. With that being said, are there any other additional items that we need to put on before I call for a motion to adjourn? Seeing none, one of the things that I would like to really do, and I would have Whitney. Whitney has been phenomenal with this and makes a lot of the stuff work in committee. So if we can all say thank you to Whitney, that would be great. And I know, Whitney, you make Justin look really good. You make me look good. So thank you for everything you do for ice hockey and for CHSAA. So with that, if there's nothing else, I need a motion to adjourn, a second, and then we will go from there.
Motion.
We have a motion from Travis to adjourn the meeting. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second from Tarita. All those in favor, just say aye, and I believe everybody's good. So we are done with the ice hockey committee meeting. Justin and I will get together. Whitney will help with some of the notes, and we will get the bulletin together and hopefully have the forfeiture wording within the bulletin that will go to Legislative Council. Justin, anything else you would like to share?
That's it. No, thank you everyone for your time, and look forward to an exciting postseason coming up.
So good luck to everybody. Finish the season strong, be safe. And now I get to go shovel.
Thanks, everybody.
Have a great
Thank
day.
you.
Have a great day.
Hey, everybody.